6 or 7 day period of time where we can review the written comments before we come back and provide our guidance. With that, I'm asking that if anybody wants to address the committee in public hearing, there's registration slips up on the table. Please do fill it out and get it to Laura. She'll get it to the committee. I will be asking very shortly that people that are going to be speaking, I'll call a person, and I will then also indicate a person to be on deck. I'm not necessarily calling this in order of pro or con. I'm just going to take them in order. And I ask that unless were they put in certain orders? That's okay. That's the way you collected them. Good. And I do ask that you do come up here and use the mic. So I'm going to call a Bill Akala. Yeah. And as Bill comes up, he will identify himself, where he lives, and his name, and then indicate if he is opposed to the rezone, if he is in favor of the rezone, or if he's neutral to the rezone. And on deck will be a Christy Binkley.
Chair, how much time?
Yes, I would like you to speak for 2 or 3 minutes. I will offer some, where I'm not going to shut the mic down, but we're also not going to ask that you go on for 7, 8, 10 minutes. Okay? Is that fair enough?
Okay.
3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Bill Hakala, and my wife and I have property in Knapp, Wisconsin, and have had it for 35 years or so. And we bought the property originally because of it being such a quiet, pleasant place. And so I'm opposed for the reason that it's turning a quiet village into an industrial zone. It's sort of, I liken it because of the train association, like having the Barnum and Bailey circus coming to town every day, but without the tent show and the trapeze artists. The main points of our opposition are the threat that it makes to air pollution, noise, the impact of these intrusions on forest and plant life and wildlife on our 110 acres, the impact on streams, and the impact on property values. That's it.
Thank you. Christy Binkley. On deck will be Stephanie May.
Hi. I'm here this morning I felt strongly that I needed to come up and at least voice my opinion. And I'm not usually a person to do that. But I feel strongly. I'm opposed. I live right on County Road K and 12, and my property runs east along 12. So I'm very concerned. We have a small beef operation. My husband and I work outside of the home. And that land is very near and dear to me. I get very emotional when I think of what my parents gave up in order to allow us kids to have that land. So it means an awful lot to me, and I am concerned about the property value. I'm concerned about the water. I went through an incident with Union Pacific years ago, and we had monitoring wells on our land for many years, and to this day I have to have a filtration system in my house because of what happened there. So I just am very concerned because everything is moving so fast, and I don't know that we know all the dangers yet that could happen from this. I know I'm very concerned about the traffic along there. I'm concerned about our agriculture. That's what Wisconsin was known for. And I just plead everybody to please think it through because there's just so many things to consider. I'm not against anybody prospering from this, but it affects so many other people down the road too. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you?
Yes.
Mr. May I ask you one question? You said you lived on 12 and K?
Yes,
You live on the south side of Highway 12?
I do. So where this transload facility would be going in is right across the road from me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, are we working on that feedback issue? Okay, thank you. Stephanie May, and on deck, we will hear from Bill Lamb.
Can I give you a statement from
Please.
Mr. Mike who's unable to be here? And then I have my own statement also I can give you if that's okay. And I'd just like to read it if that's fine.
That's fine.
Okay, so I am a resident of Stanton Township. I'm opposed to this transload facility. I'm here to give a voice to my concerns regarding the proposed transload facility on Highway 12. One, I have read in the newspaper that Vista Sand will be paying the town of Menominee a user fee of $7 per train carload of sand. And I don't believe it's a stretch to say that this is unfair to the town of Stanton as well as to Boyceville, Downing, and Knapp residents. The sand trucks that are going to be running at a minimum of every 6 minutes through these towns to unload at this proposed train facility won't just be affecting the people in the town of Menominee, but those sand trucks will also be affecting the people in these other towns and villages as well. At this point, the folks in these towns do not have a means of extracting a user fee from Vista Sand for the unpleasant and undesirable effects that much truck traffic is going to give. Vista Sand should be required to pay a user fee to all of the neighboring towns and villages because our quality of life will unquestionably be degraded on some level, and Vista Sand will be profiting while our land values and quality of life are degraded. And also in the Dunn County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance in Chapter 1, Section 8, Part G, it is said that one of the purposes of this zoning ordinance, or the Dunn County zoning ordinance, is to encourage the use of land and buildings which are compatible with nearby existing land uses, and to prohibit and control existing land uses deemed incompatible with nearby land uses. The land the rail spur is proposed to sit on was zoned agricultural for a reason, and in my opinion, and in many of my neighbors' opinions, a frac sand transload facility is not compatible with surrounding land uses. The surrounding land uses are agricultural or residential and provide for a bucolic environment. The development of a heavily industrial use would ruin this setting and encourage other industrial use where none is wanted. Why hasn't Vista Sand found a location that is already zoned industrial to construct a rail spur? A rail spur is heavily industrial and would be very disturbing to the surrounding environment and residents. And also, according to the Dunn County website, the PR&D committee is responsible for long-range development plans. If this proposed transload facility received a rezone and then operated as a frac sand transfer facility for 25 years, what would happen to the facility after that? I want to know how this facility could be beneficial for Dunn County's long-term planning if it is only slated to run for 25 years. How will Vista Sand compensate Dunn County residents for the loss of agriculture and rural land loss? What will happen to this site when the frac sand boom goes bust? The PR&D committee needs to keep the possibility of the economic bust of this industry in mind when considering this rezone. When I questioned Mr. Sykes about the capacity of the proposed transload facility, he answered that the proposed mine near Glenwood City would take up 40% of the capacity of this transload facility. This means this transfer station could then take sand from other surrounding frac sand mines to transfer to Oklahoma and Texas. In that case, there would be more than one sand truck every 6 minutes entering this rail spur. There could be one every 3 minutes. That thought is devastating to a lot of the people whose lives will be impacted by this amount of heavy truck traffic. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. And Stephanie, and would you see that I don't believe all the committee had a chance to get this. So if you would see, please, Cleo, that we do. Okay, Bill Lamb, and on deck, I will be asking for Deborah Farman. Bill Lamb? Is Bill Lamb still with us?
He was out in front.
Okay. Bill Lamb registered in opposition, and I'll hold that for later.
Mr. Chair, he also has some written comments, so.
Oh, he did? All right, so Deborah Farmer, would you please join us? And Lisa Helnar is on deck.
I'm Lisa. Deborah.
Is Deb Farmer here? Apparently not. Then Lisa, would you please?
I'm Lisa Merrill Pellner, and I live in the town of Menominee, right across from proposed rail spur. I just want to tell you a little bit about how I ended up in Dunn County. When my husband and I were relocating, we were looking at 3 different counties because we wanted to be close to the highway. We wanted to be in a small town community. We wanted to be also out in the country. One of the things, because I do landscape design for a living, that I was keen on was ordinances, easements, and zoning. There was 2 properties that our realtor brought up to our attention, and one was in St. Croix, which was perfect because most of my work is in the Twin Cities, and one was this one in Dunn. The one in St. Croix was turnkey. The house was perfect, it was ready to go, it was within our budget, exactly what we wanted. Unfortunately, the field behind it was zoned for ag, conversion to heavy commercial or industrial. So we turned it down. This one, not exactly turnkey, if anybody's seen the property right on 12. It was in foreclosure, fence was falling down, yard hadn't been maintained in years, windows were missing. However, the surrounding property was zoned exactly what we wanted for our insurance for long term. So we were willing to, and the drive was a little longer, but we were willing to put the work into the house with the insurance that we knew that maybe someday there could be a housing development or something across the street, but we would never be encroached upon by heavy businesses or heavy industrial. So we chose Dunn County because of that insurance that was in the land use plan and the current zoning. That's how I we're here, so please don't change it.
Thank you. Glenn Stoddard. And on deck will be Jim Burritt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Glenn Stoddard. I'm an attorney based in Eau Claire, and I'm representing a group of property owners here today who opposed the rezoning proposal by Vista. My clients include Todd and Anita Cockrum, Pilar Gerismo, Jason and Lisa Pilnar, Adrian and Paula Dickens, and Jerry and Roberta Thatcher. I know that we have a short time limit here, so I'll just try to be brief. I think some of the things that I would say have already been said, but I want to hit a couple of legal points here. I urge you to deny this, or to recommend denial to the county board for several reasons. First of all, the entire surrounding area is currently zoned agricultural residential A3. Thus, the rezoning to industrial would be spot zoning, which is highly questionable and arguably illegal zoning practice under the circumstances of this case. Second, the proposed rezoning is primarily for the benefit of Vista Sand, a private for-profit entity. Thus, the rezoning is not being advanced in the broader public interest or for any other legitimate zoning or land use planning reasons. Third, the proposed rezoning would be inconsistent with both the existing land use and preferred land use maps of the Dunn County Comprehensive Plan, as well as the goals and objectives of the plan. And thus, the proposed rezoning appears to be inconsistent it appears to be contrary to the consistency requirement under Wisconsin statute, section 66.10013J, which requires a county zoning ordinance enacted or amended under Wisconsin statute 59.69 after January 1, 2010 to be consistent with the comprehensive plan adopted by the county. Fourth, the proposed rezoning would be contrary to the purpose of the Dunn County zoning ordinance, section 1.8, in several respects. This is because the adverse impacts of the proposed industrial frac sand transload facility would likely include offensive and unreasonable noise, light, dust, and toxic air emissions, dangerous truck and rail traffic, fire and explosion hazards, and other adverse impacts. We've heard today that it would be a 24/7 facility. There's operational restrictions that the company has indicated that they would voluntarily include, but those would not necessarily be part of a rezoning. And there's no guarantee that a successor company would agree to those kinds of restrictions. And even so, it doesn't appear to me, from what I've heard, that they would address these nuisance impacts. The specific purpose provisions of the ordinance that I think would be violated would be 1.8A, which is to promote the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, and general welfare of the citizens of Dunn County. 1.8B, to protect and conserve the natural resources of the county, including agricultural lands, forests, wetlands, surface and groundwater, by conserving the most appropriate uses of land. 1.8C, to protect and conserve the social character and economic stability and preserve property values. That's a major concern for my clients, the adverse impact on their property values, of course. 1.8G, and I realize I'm almost done. 1.8G, to encourage the use of land and buildings which are compatible with nearby existing land uses. This is not compatible at all. And 1.8H, to prevent harm to persons and property by flood, fires, explosion, toxic fumes, or other hazards. Certainly a rail loading facility like this creates the risk of those types of problems. I'd be happy to take any questions you have. I believe this should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Burritt, and on deck is Frank Bammert.
Thank you, Chairman and chairpersons. I'm Jim Burritt. My address is North 7537 537th Street in Tanner Township. So I am speaking to oppose this proposed rezone for the reasons that I'll mention. My credentials are as such. I'm an associate professor at the University of Wisconsin-Stout. I'm a registered medical technologist, and I have a PhD in microbiology. So I'm going to speak to some of these facts of the scientific aspects of some of the concerns that I have. In particular, I'll focus on the dust. And we've talked a lot about the dust, and I know that some of the people speaking for Vista have felt that we've taken this dust thing a little too seriously. I really have the view that we have every reason to take it very seriously. And in fact, I think some of the concerns about dust are being disregarded, and I'll explain that. Respirable silica dust is a carcinogen. It's recognized to cause a number of different diseases through chronic irreversible lung damage, including cancer, silicosis, tuberculosis, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. At this time, as far as I know, until today, the only mechanism for reducing the dust leaving the site is building berms and trees on the site. Today we heard sprinklers may be used, although as far as I know, we were promised that no high-capacity wells would be drilled at the site. The idea that berms and trees will prevent dust from leaving the site, to me, seems absurd. If you look at the particle size of smoke, it's very comparable to the very small particles of silica dust that are the most damaging. If you think berms and trees will stop smoke, this fall, when you rake your leaves, light them on fire and watch which way the smoke goes. And observe whether trees will prevent that smoke from leaving the site. That's what happens with the sand dust that's small enough to cause damage to the lungs. Okay, so we've been told that the sand will be wet and that it won't be dusty. Out here at the local mine, we have a very large pile of sand. I'm sure that sand is wet when it comes out of the washing plant. They sprinkle it almost continuously, and when the wind blows, so does the dust. This winter, dozens of healthcare workers from Chippewa Valley petitioned the Wisconsin DNR to regulate airborne silica with emission standards and require monitoring. DNR said no. we have adequate regulation for dust. They said dust is already being regulated. What I think they failed to recognize is that silica is not dust. And
Mr. Burke, would you please begin to...
okay, finish it up here. Silica is like asbestos in many ways. I have literature here with me to support that. It causes damage to the lung. The DNR cannot protect us or will not protect us under the regulation we have. We have a responsibility for protecting our residents. That responsibility must begin today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bammer, and on deck will be Gene Biggs.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, I'm Frank Bammer from the Town of Menominee. I'm Town Chairman. I just wanted to emphasize that the Town of Menominee, we did approve the request for the transload station with certain restrictions that we put into developers agreement, which we addressed many of the issues that's been brought up, which has been given to the committee, and we strongly suggest that you look those over. Anything can be tweaked and changed, and I appreciate, those people that, don't feel it's the right solution or place for the facility, but I do believe it does fit in the facility. It comes down, they call it heavy industry, but it's not really a heavy industry, and I think that should be defined better on whether it looks at whether we do it on the county level or the new zoning, what becomes heavy industry. The other part, there's no deep wells there. There would not be any different wells than would be an irrigation area, because there'd be limited use of water. It's not a facility such as a mine as out here, where they need a lot of water. And again, I strongly suggest the committee take a look at this and support the Town of Menominee's wish.
Thank you. And Mr. Bammer, if you wouldn't mind, in talking to one of your colleagues earlier or during our break, he had asked me if the committee had received the full minutes from your meeting, and I do not recall having seen them. He had like an 8-page document that he had encouraged the committee to have access to. So I'm asking if you would talk to your clerk and see that Cleo gets that via email, that she can redistribute that to the committee.
I will do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Cheryl Merle, Gene Biggs. With Cheryl Merrill on deck.
My name is Jean Biggs. My address is N3655 County Road Y. I live in the township of Dunn. I am concerned in particular about the water coming off the sand. I guess at previous hearings it's been said that this water is water and there aren't any chemicals, and I can't see how sand that has been processed with polyacrylamide could possibly have the water and the polyacrylamide separated. If it goes into a holding pond, I'd like to know what happens to the water after it goes into the holding pond and how this holding pond is constructed.
Thank you. Cheryl Merrill, and on deck, Barb Flom.
Hi, and thanks again to the PRD for all your diligent work on this matter. You are appreciated.
Thank you.
Well, Glenn Stoddard sort of took my steam here, so I won't reread, but I'm sure you have them in front of you, what you have been commissioned to do for us as citizens, A through H. I did take the time for the last couple of weeks to look through the 212 Dunn County Land and Water Resource Management Plan from the Dunn County Land Conservation Committee. And a very lengthy document, but the goals for this year, if you were to refer to page 46 of the 77 pages, objective 1 under goal 5 is to improve public awareness, provide educational opportunities to preserve rural character, small farms, and the environment. Action, identify productive farmland in the Farmland Preservation Plan revision process and stress its importance for future generations. That 100 acres looks like it's in some pretty valuable corn today. Just one other brief comment as I look at this lovely golf course depiction of a rail spur. In my almost 70 years on this planet, I've never seen a rail spur that looked quite that nice. Nor can I imagine it smells very good. It's creosote, dust, dirt, and loud noise. I attest to that because I lived next to a rail spur for 23 years. It's most unpleasant. I'm a very concerned grandmother and mother. My daughter Lisa Hellner lives across the street from the spur. Thanks again.
Thank you. Barb, Flau, and on deck, we will hear from Linda Stoffel.
I'm Barb Flum from the town of Lucas. Our town board actually adopted a resolution opposing this spur, and I hope that that's gotten to Cleo. Good, thank you. Our farm is 2 miles from the spur. I'm one of the landowners, the many landowners in the area who has been pitched by the other half of the Granbury, Texas cartel, operating under the name Glacier Sands, former owners of Vista Sands who have an immediate family member working with Vista and who continue to collect royalties from Vista, according to what we've heard in previous meetings. And so there is heavy prospecting going on in my neighborhood for sand mines in the Knapp Hills area. That is the heart of my concern. I'm opposed to this rezone. I drive the haul route daily. I am speaking very much in opposition. And as my springboard, I wanted to take actually Neil's reasons for voting for the Spur as a town board member of Menominee. And there are many things I disagree with, but I've highlighted a few of them. I'm going to do this respectfully, and I promise, Neil, I will apologize if I offend you in any way as I do this. So. Neil said that he's not concerned about the dust issue, and we were actually told not to be worried about the dust issue through all these previous meetings. He says that the sand is coarse and it's a hardness of 7, which will eliminate any chance of silicosis being a problem at the rail site. I have 3 documents here, 2 from NIOSH, 1 from CDC. They say things like, transporting, moving, and refilling silica sand can release dust containing silica into the air. And who is at risk for exposure to silica? Where can exposures occur? During all sand moving operations. NIOSH and the CDC are worried about silicosis anywhere the sand is moved, and we should be too. Now today, for the first time, I've heard that there's going to be a settling pond that sometimes has water that can be used to sprinkle water onto the piles, which actually my notes from previous meetings said may contain 50,000 tons of sand. Now I'm hearing 15. So there's been a shift there too. That may actually be in some of the town of Menominee minutes, but I'd have to check that, otherwise it's in my hand. Written notes, but I'm having a hard time understanding how an intermittent settling pond can actually keep a 50,000 or even 15,000 ton stockpile of sand wet. Everything we've heard has said we need high capacity wells on short notice to be able to spray down these piles of sand when the wind comes up. The site is within half a mile of 3 trout streams, and it poses a definite hazard to the aquifer that I share, living 2 miles away. The Town of Menominee document also includes some notes about good faith gestures to the neighbors. And I applaud the neighbors who are here and have spoken against it. 2 folks who live right across the street. They've been offered tons of money, and they have said no to it. Tons of money that corrupt this process and that really amount to a personal bribe. And so that's another concern I have. This will not lessen the chance of, this will actually increase the chance of mining in our area. It threatens to open up the Knapp Hills to
I will ask you to.
what Chippewa County looks like now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm going to decline. I'm Linda.
Linda Stoffel, declined. Okay, thank you. Paula Janowski, and on deck will be C. Douglas Enlow. While we're setting up, I will remind people that you do have up until next Tuesday at the close of business to send our zoning administrator, Cleo Herrick, any written commentary that you would like to submit to the committee. She will then redistribute it to us as well then. Thank you. Please.
Yeah, Paula, I live E246 Highway 12 in Napa. I'm a resident of town of Lucas. So I live right on Highway 12, about a mile from where the proposed rail spur is located. I'm opposed to the rezone from ag to industrial. In the 2010 draft Dunn County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, it says under general provisions 13.1.8a, the one purpose of this ordinance is to protect and conserve the social character and economic stability and preserve property values. I see little in just a Sands industrial project that would serve this purpose. Please note that being that I live a mile from the spur, proposed spur, I had a real estate appraisal done on August 3rd of this year, and it says in that appraisal that this neighborhood has vacant land and farmland, operating farms, single-family properties of varying styles, sizes, and ages, with a small amount of commercial property. Clearly, my neighborhood is not an industrial area. At that end, page 112 of your Dunn County Comprehensive Land Use Plan that spans from 2010 to 2030 has a preferred use map of this very land section that we're talking about today. And the preferred use for that area is farmland. It's not industrial. I also want to mention my concern for my property values. My appraisal states that median housing prices are declining and there's an oversupply of housing in the subject's market. If Vista Sands industrial project is allowed to progress, I believe that my family, as well as neighbors near the spur and those living along the Vista route, will get a real estate death sentence. Who will ever purchase homes at fair prices when up to 40 trucks per hour could pass by 24 hours a day, 6 days a week? What about the equity positions we'll lose in our homes as they devalue, possibly up to 30%? There goes my collateral for an additional land purchase, and there goes the collateral for my husband's business startup and possibly my graduate school. I did do some observing in the middle of the night. I know we live on a state highway, and that argument's been made time and time again that being that I live on a state highway, I should expect that kind of traffic. But I've been up in the middle of the night counting cars, and I've seen as few as 2 or 3 cars in the middle of the night. So projects such as this would devastate anyone on the route in the middle of the night. I don't know how we're going to sleep. I guess they say we get used to it. Just one more note I want to add is that I did drive that route multiple times over the course of the year. I counted the amount of homes on the route, and homes with direct driveway access are at about 240. So imagine the magnitude of this route and what that could do to those people living on the route. I also counted over 30 small businesses and 5 cemeteries, 2 public parks, and there are 4 school districts involved in this proposed route. Thank you.
Thank you. C. Douglas Enlow next, and I would ask that Gerald Losted be prepared.
My name is Doug Enlow, and I live near Downing, Wisconsin. I think the proposed railroad site and planned truck route are a very bad idea. There are many reasons for this. Some of the reasons are the effect the proposed route will have on the quality of the life and property values. Imagine having trucks going by your house at all hours of the day. Already there are many homes for sale along the proposed route. None of them are selling, and some of the individuals are going to let the bank foreclose on them. Would you want to rent, live, or buy on property along the proposed route? In areas where sand mines now exist, renters renters find they can't rent or sell property. Some plan on making a quick buck by selling the land for frac sand. Either they don't care or think about the losses of the people along the 40-mile route through Knapp, Boyceville, and Downing. Many of the sand sellers feel it's their land and they can do what they want. Their actions negatively affect many others' rights. People say, my spouse, my children, my land. You can't abuse your children and your spouse, and you shouldn't be allowed to ruin your land for future generations. The land has been farmed for less than 150 years and has to last for thousands of years. And once you destroy the land and destroy the water quality and air quality, no amount of time or effort will restore it to its original value. You can't unkill something. The proposed rail site and route will open the entire area to massive mining. In 40 years, the quality of life and the value of the future land will be lost forever. The only hope lies with the good judgment and courage of local government agencies and officials to do the right thing. Federal government and state governments will not do it. Congress has a 10% approval rate, and both parties lack the ability to do the right thing. State government agencies are not going to protect the citizens from impending disaster. Some local government individuals have an agenda that promotes their or their family's welfare and not the welfare of the people they represent. It is encouraging to note that many officials have the courage to withstand the political and financial pressure applied by the mine companies. All research suggests the long-term effects of mining on the quality of life, environment, and economy are negative. Please do the right thing and stop this railroad siting.
Thank you. Gerald Losted, and on deck is Margaret Steinker.
Come across.
Just the biography. Thank you.
Okay, first I want to hit on jobs a little bit. If you Google www.worknet.wisconsin.gov, some comments, June 2012, that's pretty recent. Dunn County had at that time 6.9% unemployment rate. It's below the state average of 7.6 and the U.S. average of 8.4. At many of the meetings I've gone to, the argument has been pro-jobs. Well, this industry is not pro-jobs. The numbers show it's just not the case. You look through that study, that WorkNet, and it shows that the industry is not listed in the top 25 or the top 75 industries in Wisconsin. There's 2,845,000 workers in Wisconsin, and if every mine that's been proposed or suggested got its up to full capacity, we'd have 2,780 new jobs in Wisconsin, roughly 20 jobs per operation, but that's less than 1/1000th of 1% of Wisconsin's employment. 1/1000th of 1%. So mining is a negligible industry. It's important. I like my sand and gravel and my cement and my cow yard, but it's not much of an employer. Some people talk about the resource roller coaster. Resource mining industries are boom and bust. They're up, they're down. Currently, the people, all those truckers, 40, 50 truckers on the Glaser mine up there in northwestern Chippewa County, they're all on a 45-day layoff. They don't appreciate it. The man that hauled my hay the other day says, boy, am I glad I didn't start hauling sand. So it's not a dependable, predictable industry. Jobs. I looked at the U.S. Department of Labor and found that the Fairmont mine in Menominee, and I want to be perfectly accurate with all of you, the Fairmont mine has 1 employee, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. So don't let me make any mistakes in quoting these numbers. I did look at Manta. They said it has 15. Cortera says it has 10 to 20. The Dunn County News 2 years ago in May said it had 14. And Rich Buttinger said it had 29, but about 10 of those were regional workers. In other words, the maintenance man, the electrician, the plumber. And my wife and I have 10 regional workers too. The operation the one here in town was reportedly going to cost $50 million when I went to a meeting in this room 7 years ago. And according to the Department of Taxation in Wisconsin, it's assessed at $7 million. It paid a total of $129,000 in taxes last year, with the township of Red Cedar receiving $10,500. I don't know what they're going to do with all that money. Property values have been discussed. There's several sources telling how much property values go down. One is the Upjohn study. I won't talk about forestry, but I know Rich Budinger at a community meeting over here, he's a management for Fairmont, tells me that you can't haul the sand more than 2 miles and turn a profit in a tight economy. You signed a plan, a land use plan. Please reread it or stand behind what it says.
Gerald, I'm going to ask that you...
I'll wind it up quickly. This project has no reclamation plan. There will be no ponds, and there's no guarantee of water quality when it's over. And then included on my bibliography is spot zoning, the merits, etc. You can look that up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Margie Steiner, and then on deck, Tamara Schneider.
I'm Margaret Steenecker. I live in Stanton Township, E2221 930th Avenue. I'm opposed for lots of reasons that have already been stated. I want to express something that I hope you will take seriously as a committee that I hear repeatedly, we need facts, don't talk about your feelings and emotions. You can't just say no, that kind of stuff. And I think you need to hear that other side too, that says, the facts, people give you these facts because to back up the affection they have for this land and for their property and for preserving that and not having their way of life change. And so it shouldn't be brushed aside as some unimportant, frivolous, emotional reaction that doesn't have to do with reality. Now, I realize to do your job you need those facts, and I thank you so much for digging them up and for all these people that have done all this research and bring them to you. But please don't ignore those feelings as well. And I caution against this attitude of inevitability that you hear more and more. I so much appreciate all of you saying, what would you do? What are you proposing? And I resent the answers that all say, we're going to do this, we're doing this, it will be this way. It's not been approved yet, and I hope it won't be. So, in Vista's comments, I wonder, are they going to, which one is more important to them, and will they do either one without the other? Will they still have the mind like Glenwood City if they can't have the transfer site and vice versa? This is a little disjointed. I didn't think I could be here today. The county has to look at the whole picture for us, because who else will? The townships, we heard them say things like, we can't worry about the neighboring township. We can't worry about that village. Our job is to do this. So we're counting on you to look at the whole picture, to respect this process of what are people really saying. We're not asking for Band-Aids. Most of the people who come up here and express their opposition, they give you those facts, but they don't want you to put up a berm because they have concerns about dust. They don't want you to put some restrictions on the water because they have concerns about. They tell you those things because they don't want this period. They want to preserve what they have now. So please think about it in terms of the zoning recommendations, that people take that process seriously, that we went through all of that work and made those decisions because we thought it counted, because we thought it was valid. And how valid is it if it can be changed for the benefit of so few, and mostly just for money, just for money. Life is more than money. I'll finish in just a second. We really need a complete economic analysis that includes the opportunities that are lost, not just a count of jobs and times how much wages they're going to get. And the idea that we didn't anticipate this 20 years ago, and that's, or 10 years ago, and that's why we have to change the zoning now. You know, if you had brought this up and said, we might have this opportunity, do you want to make it industrial instead of agricultural? No, nobody would have said yes. That's not what we wanted. So please value the work we did before, our participation in this process, and if people are for it, they should be here saying they're for it. We're here, we're participating in this process.
Thank you, Mark.
Tamara
Tomorrow
Schneider.
with Harlan, excuse me,
Tamara Schneider.
Tamara, and then Harlan Larson on deck, please.
Okay, I'm from Colfax, Wisconsin. A zoning department should stand behind its zoning, or what good is that department for? Vista has said a lot of things about proposed routes. Proposed. That doesn't mean that's the routes that they're going to actually use as they get in. We've seen what sand mining has done to Dunn County. We've seen the broken promises. We've seen land landslides into our rivers, environmental impacts. We've seen a house go down. We've seen many things happen that we all have said could happen, has happened. If zoning doesn't protect our rights as citizens, how many of us want to live in Dunn County? How many of us want to move to Dunn County? Zoning should be part of the community, not part of whoever's the highest bidder. So I encourage the zoning department to look at our land plan, to look at the people that are here, and also to look at the people that are not here, because a lot of us have to work, and I'm already late for my job. This isn't about Colfax. This isn't about Menominee. This isn't about Tainter. It's about the whole county and what's happening to it. And if you drive around Dunn County now, it puts you in tears. What's happening to it. We used to be one of the most beautiful counties in the whole United States, and look what has happened. We have to protect what we have, or we won't have anything to protect at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Harlan Larson, and on deck, we would appreciate hearing from Richard Harnish.
I'm Harlan Larson, M6975 160th Street in Lucas Township. For most of this time I've been here, now almost 3 hours, I thought it was the wrong meeting. I was sure the notice said something about rezoning. All we heard about is the operation. There's been no talk about the rezoning. What is the justification for this site to be rezoned at this time for this particular use? Is there a shortage of industrial property in the county? I don't think so. It seems to me what we're looking at here is a accommodation, if you will, of a specific use. And if that is in contract zoning by the legal definition, it sure smells like it. And I think contract zoning in Wisconsin is illegal. So why aren't we taking a look at that? Now, there have been all kinds of comments on the operation. I won't do anything about it, but take a minute and think about what's going to happen if you approve this rezoning, or if it gets approved, or realize that you can't approve it. It's the county board as a whole. But you look at a couple things when you start asking for rezoning. We've got other mining industry or interest in this area that are going to come in. First two things you look at is, has there been any major changes in the area? If you go ahead and rezone this 100 and some acres, put in a loading site that they emit, petitioners emit, is well over capacity for what they have to ship out at this time, you've got a major change in the area. Secondly, you look at what's been going on with the administration of the zoning codes today. You could spend 2 hours talking about what's wrong with this proposal in terms of the application process, the rationale that's been sent forward, the conflicts with the master plan, all that sort of thing. And you'd have to say if this goes through, there's not been given a lot of thought to how we're going to maintain the integrity of our planning process. So you've got two problems there. Thirdly, you've got this ridiculous overlay zone that you've got to consider. If you pass that with these two things here, you essentially opened up the whole county to zoning, to rezoning for sand mining. I don't know how you could possibly get out of the courts and they wouldn't hold it if anybody has a right to have a mine. You got to take a look at these things. We can't have, is this a legitimate business? I think it is. But we got to look at the zoning now. That's what you're here for today, not the operation. is this particular site needed to be rezoned now for industrial use in this area? My gosh, I don't know how you can justify that. You've got industrial land standing vacant all over. What is the purpose? It's the long-range plan is the plan, is the problem. If you open up this county, you know, the mining district, the mining companies can operate. They have no problem with that. They've been jumping through hoops for 200 years. They've got to have the right to mine first, and that's what you're giving them. If you open this up, you're opening up the whole county. Thank you. I hope you oppose this.
Richard? And then,
Thank you. My name is Richard Harnish. I live at E3224 690th Avenue. If you drive out at 330th, when across the creek, you would drive into my driveway. I sit up on top of a hill. I will be overlooking this site. No berm or trees that they're going to put there is going to stop the wind and the sand and the dust and the noise or the light pollution or anything else from intruding upon me and my property. The wind constantly blows down that valley. I live on top of that hill. I never, or rarely, do I ever have to not have my, or have to have air. I get plenty of breeze. The wind constantly blows. The dust issue, as the gentleman so eloquently pointed out, it exists. It's part of the sand. It is not going to be stopped. The only way that they're going to do it is to wet that down. You've got a trout stream less than a quarter of a mile as the crow flies away from this site. That water is going to run directly into that trout stream. It will kill that trout stream. From everything that I've heard and I understand, the groundwater temperatures are in immediate vicinity of these facilities raises anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees. If you imagine a sprinkler soaking down however many cubic yards of hot sand sitting in the sun, you can't tell me that that's not going to affect the groundwater quality or the temperature of it. That trout stream is, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the things that our area is known for. And to destroy it is just beyond me. I just can't understand it. Some of the math that they've used, it just doesn't add up. I ran the numbers and broke it down, and it just doesn't add up. The tax revenues that this is going to bring in, as you pointed out, the Spurs, the majority of the cost, or I shouldn't say the majority, but a good portion of the cost of this facility is going to be the switches and all of that UP will own. Well, if that's not part of the tax base and not part of the valuation of this property, then that $12 million, that's totally inaccurate. It's not even close. You've got a pole building, a conveyor belt, and a pile of sand. What is the value of that? As the gentleman pointed out about the value of the facility across the way. Now, as a landowner there, my property value is going to drop. Well, I can tell you right now that when my property value drops, I'll be petitioning the county to reassess my tax burden, because it's not going to be exactly, fair or accurate. Because my property value will drop by 30%, so should my taxes. All of those, I think she said 200 homes. They're all going to be the same way. That tax base has got to be figured into whatever it is that they're going to pay in taxes. And I think that if you find 200 properties losing property value and tax base, it's going to by far offset any minuscule amount that they're going to have. And then to address the boards, the city townships board, their arrangement, they're supposedly going to guarantee our property values for the next, I've heard 3 to 5 years. Well, so in other words, I've got to find some sucker that will buy my property in 3 to 5 years, or I'm going to lose my retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask, there were 2 people earlier I called upon that were not in the room. Is Deborah Farmer here? Okay. Is Bill Lamb here? Okay. Then that does conclude the oral testimony, unless I will ask again if anybody wants to address the committee, now would be the time to do so. If anybody would care to address the committee on this rezone issue, now would be the time. And the time is now. Yes, sir.
I got one other thing. At Highway 12, there is a...
Excuse me, would you come up? And would you state your name?
Todd Cockrum, I live right across from it,
Okay.
from Ford Road. Highway 12 is an alternate for 94. And when there's any problem out there, traffic's bumper to bumper on 12. We've had it backed up from city limits out past our place 2 or 3 different times. So what's it gonna be like when you get one of their trucks every 3 minutes added along with that? We've had 4 accidents there, that's a straight stretch, since we've been there in 94. Well, now you start having all them trucks come in and out of there. So it's just something to think about. It's an alternate for 94.
Thank you. Would you address your name, please, and address?
I'm Ron Erickson. I live on M7219 County Road K. If you look at the picture, I don't know if you can see it here, but I'm right on the corner, right there. That's my house. The only thing I want to say, 11 years ago, my wife and I bulldozed down a perfectly saleable house to keep that chunk of land that's been in my family for well over 100 years. You can call it home because of the neighbors and the quiet, peace and quiet we have there. We bulldozed down a perfectly saleable home to keep that piece of property. Look again. I want you to see it. That's my house right there. And I'm going to be looking at this thing every single day. My deck points right at it. That's all I got.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the committee? Anybody else? Please state your name and your address, please.
My name is Paula Dickens, and I have a house on 9603 County Road O, but I also have 80 acres right on 330th Street across from this proposed rail spur. I can tell you 9 years ago when we were looking for retirement homes that we spent a lot of time looking at lake lots, all kinds of different places, and within a minute of seeing this view that we were going to have, it was up on a ridge looking down on the creek. We were sold immediately. We told the realtor we wanted the acreage. They were said that there was 40 acres that they wanted to sell. We ended up with 80. We have that $1 million view. If this comes through, there is no way that we'll ever build a house there. I mean, as we were going through April to put our plans into action, we got this letter saying that they were going to be proposed to put our plans right on hold. There's no way. With my husband holding a CDL, there is just absolutely no way. I mean, it's like a bunch of bees coming to a nest is what's going to happen with these guys coming in. I'm just trying to think of what else I'd have to say. Is there any other questions you guys would have for us? As landowners, we're really going to suffer. I mean, a lot of us are already backwards in our mortgages. We bought when mortgages, you know, when land was very high. And now that it's gone down, and then they want to put another 30% on us on top of that, there are a lot of people that are willing to walk away with things happening because there's no way we're going to be able to sell them. There's no way. Nobody's going to want to live next to that. People move to the country for a reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the committee? Addressing the committee at this time would be the thing to do. Anybody else that would like to address us? Hearing none, I will, in council, I can close the public hearing portion and request that written documentation be submitted up to a week from today. Is that appropriate? Okay, then I will do so. I will close the public hearing portion and do recommend that anybody can draft their comments, send them to our zoning administrator, Cleo Herrick, by the end of business 1 week from today, and then she will get the committee your comments. And then my intent is to the regularly scheduled PR&D meeting is scheduled for September 11th at 9 a.m. at the Government Center, and that is the day that I will ask the committee to hold a vote. And committee members, do you have any questions, concerns? Hearing none, I think we shall adjourn. Okay? Is that it?